It is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you here this evening on the launch of Vanessa's latest book, Vaulting Over. And it's looking really nice. And of course, her talk with Parul Ohri. We all know Vanessa, so I thought that I would probably only do an update, because considering the millions of things that she does, an update is needed for her more often than Windows 10. And there's so many multifaceted activities in which she is involved. But over the years that I've known her, I've known her to be a person of amazing accomplishments. And one thing that strikes you immediately is her creativity, is her original thought, which she is able to translate into mediums of communication, which are so easy to understand. And she is so reader and person-focused that when you read her or you associate with her writings or get yourself involved with them, you find that they are amazingly, a huge amount of intelligence, insight, and simplicity comes out in a very, very brilliant fashion and form. As you can notice that I've completely gone off my script because it's lying over here on my knee and I don't need to use it, because honestly, all I want to say is that she has a style which is unique, which is simple and hugely impactful in everything that she does, including her persona. Now, whether it's a book on performance-ready plays and poems in Play It Right, or her poem on inclusion in I Am Special that has become part of a school curriculum, or her short story The Deluge, which was included in Right and Beyond's publication Escape Velocity, and honestly her numerous original plays with urban-suburban production, which most of us have seen. Her incredible creativity, as I said, and depth of thought and clarity and expression always shine through. And we have always recognized her, and I love this line as I wrote it, and we've always recognized her as the queen of the pen, the palette, and the performance. Okay, and so today is about her, right? So I better get out of here. So without further ado, may I invite Vanessa to come and inaugurate this wonderful book of hers. Come.
I have a mic. Is it on? So firstly, thank you so much, Amar. You make me feel taller than I am, and that's a great feeling. Thank you to all of you for coming here today. This really means a lot to me. Thank you to the Quorum for doing this. Thank you to my publishers, who are so good that they didn't manage to get here on time, but that's another story. And the biggest thank you, and I'm not just saying this because he's my husband, but Rohit. Whatever, he puts up with all my shenanigans and lets me do what I do and doesn't bother me when I'm doing it. So that's great. And another thank you that I need to give is to my entire creative team, that I could not have done this without. And that entire creative team is encapsulated in one person, my daughter, Ravya. So Ravya is my go-to for everything social media, everything. Yes. So to bang on the road, I did this on time, and etc. So I get many eye rolls, but I have also got a lot of wisdom from her, and for that I am eternally grateful. So Ravya is the only person I could have called on to do this with me. Yeah. Come on, Ravya, let's do this! Okay. No, not yet. But it doesn't matter. After that. Woo! So, I do hope that you guys are going to take back something from here, and I'm not just talking about the book, but we're going to have a little talk about vaulting over in a bit, and for that, yes. So, yeah. My mic's not on. Yeah. So that's fine. I'm good. So
we have to now and you thought I was done, right? Okay. But just so this little story I want to tell you about this ribbon that refused to come off the book. A quick one. So Kumar Jaswant Singh, who was once our finance minister, we were in AmCham and we were asking him to inaugurate a real great study that we had done. And the guys who had packed the book got over enthusiastic about it. And then this man was trying to unravel this book while there was this pained silence in the hall, and finally he just tore it open and the book flew out.
That didn't happen to us.
No, it did. Okay. Well, I'm going to add a fourth P to the pod of pen, palette and performance. And that is Parul. one of our most charming and endearing personas that I have had the pleasure of knowing, honestly. And she's the chief editor of Mom's Presso, a TEDx speaker, a filmmaker, a blogger, a talk show host, of course. And apart from that, she is a very accomplished actor, which we've had the privilege of knowing, right? And as you will see, and you must have noticed already, she has a radiance about her persona that fills the room. And whoever she speaks with, she completely disarms and charms and is able to evoke thoughts and expression from people she speaks to that they themselves are quite often surprised that they said that, right? So we could not have had a better person to have a chat with Vanessa about her latest book and thoughts. Right, okay.
So, welcome everybody, and I have to start with first, of course, congratulations, Vanessa.
Thank you.
And thank you, Vanessa. Thank you is at many levels. One is thank you for making this an in-person event. Hello, people, and not boxes on a screen.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely.
So nice. At least, I'm confident that I'm audible, I'm not on mute.
Yeah.
And we're all on video, so be careful, no funny backgrounds and stuff like that. Thank you also for bringing together this compilation. I think we've all been fans of your work since the first Inktober series. And a lot of us have been egging you on to actually put this together. So thank you again, because it's a valuable treasure for all of us. To have that insight into your brilliant perspective is really something we're all going to treasure.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you for making me a part of this conversation. You know that, you've been a mentor to me, and I put you on a very, very high pedestal.
Oh, that's so kind.
It's an absolute privilege to be part of this conversation today.
Thank you, Parul.
But
Thank you.
of course, today is all about vaulting over. So, just to get back to that, you call it your attempt through scribbles and scrawls to make some sense of the craziness that we call life. Now, those scribbles and scrawls are actually brilliant masterpieces of verse and sketches of her illustrations. Each one is a masterpiece, each illustration is a masterpiece by itself, and then put together with verse, it just takes it to an entirely new level, and you'll see that. You must have seen it already in various other social media platforms, but you will see that in the book. I've had the privilege to have a sneak preview and absolutely love it. So, now this is a world that is reimagined but very real, not difficult to achieve, with a leap of faith and a brave new overview, as you say. I love that brave new overview part. I think is just, we're going to talk about that a little more in detail. But let's start about that leap of faith. So what is it that we need vaulting over? What are we leaping over?
So, thanks firstly, Parul, for that question. It's one that I've asked myself many times, why vaulting over? The more I try to process what is happening in the world around us, the more I'm convinced that all the issues, practically all the issues that we face, come from a similar space, which is the inability that we have to, accept a point of view that is different from ours and respect it for what it is. This we do sometimes in the name of religion or tradition or conditioning or education or gender or nationalism. But at the end of the day, it still means in essence that we are stuck. So vaulting over to me has been just my, my humble attempt at unsticking myself, so to speak, just knocking off, the trappings of here and now and this and that and black and white and left and right and whatever, and conditioning that has happened over the years. So, and sort of, so when I say vault over, firstly, vaulting over are my initials. So that makes it a little special. So, and vaulting over for me is also, it's basically taking that leap to a space that is neutral and observing things from a place where the air is a little clearer. So you get a better perspective of something. I've also, one of my first pieces in the book, the very first, is a piece called Vaulting Over. So, yeah, I would actually love to read that. Yeah. Yeah, since I don't have a lapel, Parul is
no problem. Happy to help.
So this is the first piece in my book, and it's called Vaulting Over. Risky, no doubt, but less than being stuck in a safe zone. Bunker with no answers. Too deadly that. And so I must try vaulting over. Braving opinion for the thrill of a leap, bend of a norm, view from atop, not this box or that, inking my thinking, all for the joy of that jump. So basically that's the only reason, because it gives you some form of an exhilaration to be in a space that is neutral. That's why vaulting over.
It's a great start, actually. This really sets the context for the book, because there's so much more that goes in, when we're talking about perspectives. And just going back many years, actually, I think through, all the plays that you've written with the team, that, you've produced over the years, there has been this sense of looking at things differently. I think it's been there throughout, and that's probably something we've all enjoyed. As part of the production, as part of the audience, I think it's all been, one of those, it's been the draw.
Yeah.
That you're not looking at the same story the same way. So obviously that's been a part of you.
Yeah.
So where in your personal being did you actually want to take that leap, or, bring yourself to that 30,000 overview?
So I have to give credit here to, the conversations that I've had with young people. So even when it was a piece I had written in my book, Play It Right, which is a piece called Mario Mustafa Mehra, it again comes from a perspective that young people have of the adult world, which is not very flattering most of the times. And so here I feel, for me, vaulting over has come from a space where just listening to young people and where they are coming from, and not trying to put them down in the sense of their opinions are wrong. I actually feel that most often, though we will have our tussles with them and argue with them, but they are most often right. They are most often right. And also, this whole thing that we talk about, roots. For instance, when you feel that a child should develop roots, that's great, but roots are supposed to help you to grow, not pin you down. And there is also a world of difference between being grounded and being stuck. And I take a lot of my learnings from young people. Though I might fight with them.
Yeah. You mentioned stunt, Vanessa. That's one of the pieces in your book, which is... Oh, sorry. So one of the pieces in your book, stunt, that's comes across and brings a lot of what you said, brings that out quite clearly. Tell us a little bit about that. Let's just quick overview and then...
Yeah. So again, to talk about tradition and roots. especially today in the current scenario where, we're not going to get political here, but, there are a lot of things happening in the country, and everything is sort of connected to because we were this way at a particular time, we need to be that right now. So, and because of our roots and because of history and, but that particular sketch, has an overturned head, and the head has roots which are stuck in the ground. That's exactly what the issue is. That if roots are not going to help you to grow, then you possibly don't need them. And now that's a bold view. But they have to help you to grow. If they do not help you to grow, then what's the point? They're not there just to keep you static or standing, because empathy you require empathy to evolve, and growth and change are interconnected.
Otherwise you may as well be stuck.
You may as well just be like a statue or something, yeah. Yeah.
So all the illustrations and all the pieces in your book, they're quite strongly independent, and yet I found there were running themes in, like sections of them, some of them. So what we've done today is to try and run through some of those themes, and we also have some of those visuals there for the audience to see. I'm going to ask you to read aloud some of the pieces, and at the end of the conversation, please, your comments, responses, questions, whatever, so just keep them stacking up, because we'll take that up at the end of the session as well. Lovely. So that's the plan. And I'm going to start with the first one, which is, lots of things. So this is one of the pieces, geometry box, on conformity, on rigid superstructures that are set up sometimes by ourselves, right? So let's start with this one, geometry box. So should I help you with that?
So this is a piece that I wrote, which is called a geometry box. And it goes like this. All the world's a geometry box, and all of us instrumental. We put them there, those plastic rulers bent on alignment, lethal dividers, puncturing surfaces with rusty points, little holes for venom, views cast in stone refusing to budge, set squares, only one right angle, they insist, crafty protractors all, calculating every degree for good measure. And then the rest of us, always searching for that bloody compass.
Really lovely. This is absolutely one of my favorites from the book.
I know, that's what Parul told me. She said that's one of my favorites and we have to start with it. So I said, great.
No, because you brought in so much. You brought in, the whole aspect of course, the lost compass part of it right at the end. But, the set squares, squaring you in, and it's all there. I mean, this is all about rigid structures.
And actually the telling line there is that we are all instrumental.
Yeah.
We are the ones who do this to ourselves. We define, therefore, and we set ourselves up for definition. We manipulate, set ourselves up for manipulation. So we do it to ourselves. And we have only ourselves to blame if we are doing it.
That's the interesting part, because a lot of it is a legacy, which sometimes we don't even realize. And I think, all these superstructures and rigidities that we build for ourselves have just come from a generation above us, and it'll probably go to the next generation unless, we set our geometry box straight and find that lost compass.
I know. Yes.
Another very valid question you brought up is who decides? And again, this comes back to the same question of, fine, if you're trying to break out of those rigidities, are you being able to, do things for yourself? So give me your mic and let's get on to who decides.
Yeah. So this is a piece called Who Decides. Who decides what's best for you? You could be a flower pot that was born a shoe. Tell them, those who say they know what's good for you, that what you seek is no sin, just a little comfort in your own skin.
so relatable.
Yes. I just feel that, we are constantly this whole thing about conforming and, I know we all lecture our kids and we've got lectured, and we do it. But as far as possible, wherever you find somebody struggling to break out of something which is the norm, respect that. I think we need to respect that, which we don't, So, yeah.
And I mean, of course, young people are facing that the most, but I think in every one of our lives, we have had someone who's been there, who knows better.
Yes, absolutely.
And sometimes we do that also.
We do that. We're all guilty. We are all guilty of these. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So this one, I love how with, the minimal of words, you've been able to send out something which is a very, very strong message.
Thanks so much.
I think they're all my favorites. Okay, the next one in this theme that really stood out for me is Goddess Knows.
Oh, that's a fun one.
That's a fun one. So I'll wait for you to read that first because I think there'll be lots to talk about in this one.
Yeah. So, this comes from a space, where all those of you who've seen our Women's Day productions and where we talk a lot about women and we don't always bash the men up. We do a lot of female bashing as well. And so this comes from a space of this whole thing about what's fake, right? Okay, so this is called Goddess Knows, as in N-O-S-E. Okay. She wafts in, glued on lashes aflutter, shopping for a new bag, Botox, bombshell, siren of style, plastic smile plastered on, matching other body parts. Show me a brand that makes a statement, she says, then adds, and babes, make no mistake, I have a nose for fakes. This brings back memories of this play. Remember the play we did?
Absolutely, yeah.
So. Is Aarti here? No. Not yet. But you are here, yeah. Aarti! So two of the stars of this particular play are here. So Aarti and Parul. And this the play was called LVNV. And it was about three women. We didn't know towards till the end as to whose bag was fake. But they were all, so it was an amazing play and they both did a fabulous job.
It was fun.
And yes, and we had many discussions about this, about, what is it about the real brand? Why is it that, you will completely dish something that is fake? What does it make you? As in, how does a real brand make you more real as a person? So we had a lot of very interesting conversations.
In fact, yeah, I mean, behind stage, reading the script and everything, I think a lot went into that because I think all of us had a very different perspective and, of course, the same perspective as to what does a brand do to you at the end of the day. Are you okay with a fake? And, well, she has a nose for fake, so it's dangerous sometimes.
Yeah, but the idea is that if you are so anti-fake, then be real yourself.
And there's also, I think, in this piece, and particularly here, you're talking about this, the desperation to fit in.
Yes.
The kind of things that people will do to make sure that, they're climbing that, whatever, some fragile rung in some imaginary ladder to, I don't even know where.
Yeah,
so
true.
That desperation also comes across quite clearly.
So true.
Moving on to another theme that you've covered beautifully across the book is relationships. And I'm going to take that up in three parts. And the first part is a relationship, of course, with the closest ones in your life, your spouse, children, your friends, family. So let's start with the first one in that, Not Sweet Tie. Okay. So like I said, each illustration is a masterpiece in itself.
So this comes from so my son got married this year. It was a pandemic wedding. It happened in the US and it was a court marriage. We haven't seen my daughter-in-law since, but we've met her because there was a visa issue, etc. But, we were not there for the wedding, but which was sad. But, what has happened post that is, she's become such a good buddy. She's become so close, very close to her mom as well. I've become very close to her mom. And in essence, that's fine. So when they come here, we'll have a party. But anyway, I am digressing. So the reason why I wrote this was because I couldn't have been there. But, the mommy and me wanted to give a little advice. So and what kids are like, they're not going to take your advice like if you sit and lecture them. So it's nice to put it into a poem and just put it on my vaulting over Instagram page, and then they say, oh wow, wasn't that meant for us? So I said, yes it was, but I haven't. but this is that piece. So it's called The Knots We Tie. There is an art to the tying of a knot. Too loose and it collapses, a messy tangle in that fire. Too tight and it strangles, smothering with the staleness of dead smoke. Naughty is nice, only when you put fun in that hold, air in each fold, with ends that always stay equal.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So fabulous, this one. I'm going to ask you to read another two, and then we could probably talk a little bit more about relationships, because at the end of the day, we managed to muck them up royally. So the next one is pace.
So pace is basically comes from this whole thing about, everybody is worried about how fast their kids are going to do what they are set out to do, and, everybody's worried about colleges and jobs and, whatever. So this has come from that space. And the poem is called Pace. Don't stress about them getting there. That pace is really their own to own. Check instead the weave of those wings you help them grow, the force of the wind you make them weather. Marvelous that metamorphosis when the dither slithers away and takes flight.
Lesson to all of us parents, I think.
So I feel everybody does things at their own pace. And, it's when we try, maybe to push things, the only thing that you will achieve in the process is possibly losing that child. The child's going to be there physically, but, somewhere they've switched off. So, just to let them do it at their own pace, they'll do it. If they were meant to do, whatever pace they were meant to have, they were born to have, they will have. Nothing that you are going to do is going to fix that. And that's the realization that we have to all live with. Absolutely. And it's good.
The next one, which I know everyone's going to enjoy thoroughly, is Loop of Life.
I will have to change that. Okay. So this is my piece called The Loop of Life. Let it be, and you will see how smoothly it all just unravels in the end. So magically they untangle those tangles. A new pattern at every turn, slipping into place seamlessly, working it all out again and again, because that's what loops do.
Fabulous. So this is one of the reasons why I thought, let's just talk about them all together, because we start by talking about the knots that we are tying. And, you talked about what all you need to put into that knot. Let it stay knotty, but, it has to have all of that. As long as the ends are equal. You talked about putting fun into the knots. All of that is there. And then you've got the other aspect of a loop, which is
not a knot.
Which is not a knot.
Which is not a knot.
Let it be. It needs to be untangled.
Yeah.
So that's really the gamut of relationship.
Yeah.
In all its simplicity and complexity.
Yeah. So I think the simple truth for us all to realize is that one is a knot, because it's a relationship that you are forging with another person. A loose knot, yes. A happy knot, yes. All that, but not because it's legal and all that. But the other one is the loop. And if, you can't put a knot in here. Yeah. You can't. You have to respect the patterns that this thing is taking, the way it all just works out. And, it will work out. It will all be in place because you are connected despite not having a knot. Then it's there. The connection is there. And that's why, well, the whole umbilical thing, and if you look at it closely, there are little patterns at every turn. Well, I've tried to pack in a lot of meaning in that sketch.
No, absolutely. The whole fetal position and the umbilical cord. So, as far as we're talking about, personal relationships, how does that overview, the leaping over, how does that help? When we're, sometimes we're too close. We can't see the full picture. So,
yeah, so, it's difficult. It's not easy. It's not easy, because obviously you're there. But I think it's just that, so after you've had your argument or scrap or screamed or whatever, just move back and I think reflect a little bit. And, it's a question of, I don't think, any human being can evolve if they have no empathy. And, it's that empathy has to come from both sides.
Sure.
And that can only happen if you take that little leap and look at the situation from a position that is not your own. It has to be from a neutral space. And hopefully the other person does that as well, so.
And that vantage position will also give you a full picture, rather than what you see from your vantage point.
Yeah,
and, so I guess that's what one needs.
That's what one needs.
I'm just going to refer to another very interesting piece in the book. It's called "The Storm in a Teacup."
Okay.
And you've talked about letting things, like fester over there. In fact, I'm going to ask you to explain that a little bit.
Okay, so "Storm in a Teacup." The visual, I don't think we have the visual here, but it's very much in the book. So the storm in the teacup is about letting things fester, and you feel that, okay, fine, this is a fight we have, it'll blow over, it's okay, everything will get back to normal, which it will. I'm sure it will. But the important thing to realize is that the more of these these incidents that happen, the cracks develop further. So, and I've talked further, we'll come to that later, about not letting things brew. And that's what this is about. It's about resolving before you move. And the poem is in the book, and
we can't let them all out.
We can't let them all out. So Parul has insisted that we don't let them all out. But yes, that's the storm and the teacup.
No, I like the part about the whole. If you let storms fester, the storm is just going to weaken
the teacup. Okay, now there is a thought that says, and it's a beautiful Japanese thing that so, but every crack you fill with gold. And that whole thing becomes more beautiful. But a crack is a crack, right? Gold is something that you are going to import and put back into that, so it's going to break the essence of what that. I'm just going off into another metaphorical spin here, but the truth is that why do we need that? I mean, why don't we just resolve rather than let things fester and
Yeah. So I'm going to stick to that point about letting things fester. There is another poem, and it's another theme related to relationships, and this is relationships beyond just interpersonal ones. This is a more macro view, your socio-political relationships, with the world, and statements that everyone needs to make. So never mind. Let's start with that one. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So this piece is called Never Mind, and okay, I'll read it and then we'll talk a little bit about it after that. So it says, "Never mind, you say, with your token let it rest. And the rest, as they say, is history. For they will now germinate in your deep, the unspoken. Every word you buried alive, a smothered seed, lurking in the darkness, fated to explode, gnarled with need, condemned to fruitlessness, desperate for air." So, this is the piece, and there is a recurring theme. I've got another piece also, which is Volcano, which talks about this whole thing about not letting things, brew and talk about it before it becomes so huge that, it's completely out of control. So just about not smothering anything and just communicating, because I think, just to keep the peace, we sometimes don't talk, and that is so wrong.
And I know that from your point of view that you've always had a stance on taking a stance. So does this also talk about that to some extent? Because you're talking about, not letting your thoughts out. So is that also part of it?
Yes. So it's, I feel like, silence sort of unnerves me. I hate silences. So, you ask anybody from my family and they will tell you. So, there goes Rohit giggling away. But it's, I'm the kind of person, if there's a group of people, Paramdeep knows. People are talking and then there's that awkward silence that happens. So the first time, say we were meeting Soha, that's my daughter-in-law's parents, Rohit told me that, don't talk too much, So, but what was lovely was the fact that, of course I talked, but what was lovely was that her mom was a fellow Sagittarian, and so we both talked. So it was lovely. It was perfect, So, but whatever, the whole thing about silences are, and in a political space, that's even worse. Yeah. So I have a solid problem with people who don't answer questions. Okay, I'm not going to get there, not going to get political, but I said it. Yeah.
We'll at least let's explore a few more thoughts in that genre. The crutch they create. Let me help you. I'm sure everyone's waiting for this one.
So this one is called The Crutch They Create. Hear them, those orators of hate, how deftly they maim, disabling us with differences, telling us we are not the same, goading us to grab that crutch they create, so handicapped those that hate. Thank you. I just feel that hate really handicaps, and it's the biggest handicap that we are facing all over the world. And, why we give in to it? Because we are setting ourselves up for to be manipulated. But we do it. And we need to realize that every time we, forward a hateful WhatsApp or rant about something without knowing exactly, especially on social media, about exactly what the context is, but, and get into this heated, we are just sort of spreading the hate. So why are we doing it? I mean, if you want to have an intelligent conversation about whatever, whether it's politics or whatever, call a few friends home, friends with differences in opinion, and chat. I think that's what's going to take our world forward. When people with absolutely different interests and mindsets can sit together over a cup of wine or coffee or whatever and chat and go back happy and still be friends.
It's just getting increasingly difficult to do that now. That's the only thing. One more here. Don't rest in peace. Peace.
So, well, we are all in this whole space now with this war happening, and we're all worried and things like that. This is a piece that I wrote many years ago, but it will never not be relevant. So the piece is, Don't Rest in Peace, Peace. They tore you to shreds, ripped your heart out, buried you without ceremony, then stuck a stone in there. Rip, it said. Don't rest in peace, peace. Rise from the dead. Fight back.
Really? Need of the hour.
And fight back with peace. So that's the whole thing. I know I've always actually had a problem with this word rip. And I said, why? People say rip. Rest in peace. Yeah. Nobody goes, but it's a horrible acronym. It couldn't be worse. I just feel that in the context of what is happening, we have ripped peace completely, We fight for peace, we talk about peace, but there's just hate brewing everywhere. And unless, we can, find more peaceful ways of resolving our own issues, let alone political issues, I think that could be a start somewhere.
I'm going to leave the rest of this conversation for the cup of coffee you promised, or the glass of wine.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's a lot to say over here, and you've just about scratched the surface and got us all riled up over there, but there's a lot to talk about, yes, definitely. I'll move on to another part of relationships, which I feel is the most important, and that is your relationship with yourself. So we've got a beautiful piece coming up, self-love. And perhaps the most neglected relationship, the relationship with self.
So this piece is called Self-Love, as Parul just told you. And this is how it goes. There's no one you can love if you don't love you. But first, discard the guilt, the type designed to wilt your soul. Adore instead fiercely every bit of you. Let self-love pour into every pore, seep into every soul you own. Only then will it grow roots at your core, springing forth in green fronds of hope, oxygen for all those still gasping for breath.
It's a lovely one. Really nice.
I feel that,
this is your song.
But, you can't really love anybody if you don't have love in you. And you have to love yourself, and don't feel guilty about it. You don't have to feel guilty. Okay, this again goes back to these Women's Day plays that we've had, where we've talked about, a woman shrinking herself to fit into a space because she has to accommodate X, Y, Z around her. You don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that. Be happy with who you are, love who you are, because if you don't have it, you can't give it. You're going to be this unhappy person doing duty because it has to be done, but
you're not going to give out joy.
Yeah, you can't.
You made a distinction with self-image here.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's interesting as well.
So my very next piece, actually, which again we don't have here because, as Parul said, don't give everything away, is self-image. Now, self-love is very different to self-image. So self-love is the love that you have for yourself, with all the wrinkles and the craters and the whatevers and the flaws. Self-image is falling in love with this persona that you have created, that you have built, from material things or, which is not really you. So don't fall in love with that image. We're not talking about that image here. That's a completely different, we're talking about self-love. Love yourself with all its flaws.
I think this distinction is particularly important in this Instagram era.
Instagram era, apps.
Insta-worthiness.
Insta-worthy. I have one of those as well.
Yes. You do, yeah. Okay, so next one's really beautiful also. Reinvention.
This piece is called Reinvention. Everyone has more than one reason to be. No one's created for one intention. A helmet could well become a boat at sea. It's just a small matter of reinvention. So here, the idea is that, nobody is ever finished. The story goes on. You do something, it doesn't work out. You do something again. You become somebody else. You do something else. So, in fact, in my book, I've actually there are a couple of blank pages at the end of it, which actually have a meaning. It's for all the reinventions. It's symbolic of all the reinventions that we all deserve. Allow your life to take another path if one path is not working. There's nothing wrong with that. There's everything right with it.
So you're going to add a fourth P there after pen, performance.
Parul was one of them.
Pen, talent, and performance. So there's some more reinvention there.
And page. Pages. Yeah.
Blank pages.
Blank pages.
Lovely.
Yeah.
There's another one which I thought had so much meaning, excess baggage. And there's a lot to discuss about all of these together. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we can come back to that, sure. Yeah. Or do you want to just talk us through it?
Yeah. Sorry.
Flipped over.
Okay. So this is excess baggage. You never really need that load you lug along. Just in case, you say, for some hypothetical rainy day, ignoring the heavy price you pay for all that baggage weighing you down. Breathe and try letting go. Watch it all just float away out of sight into the darkest oblivion. Life feels so right when you travel light in your mind space.
Real. So much you said. You need that.
I did. So Parul, you're going to say something.
I was, again, now going through the gamut of thoughts and emotions that you brought out with these three pieces. This is really a sampling of what is there in the book. But we talked about self-love, we talked about self-image, about, removing those obstacles of guilt, which I think all of us stumble over in any case. You talked about reinvention and now letting go. So this is all a part of rediscovering your potential.
Rediscovering, I think, respecting yourself.
Respect.
Because don't demand respect from anybody if you don't respect yourself. And that is a huge learning. We've even done that piece, right? She for she, and where before you talk about he for she or whatever, she for she, stand up for yourself. There's nothing to be apologetic about. You are who you are, and people who love you will love you regardless of anything. So
one does, you do shortchange yourself, in fact,
yes.
Because you just can't believe that
I think what happens is because we sort of give into these definitions that are created. So
coming back to geometry box.
And it's all connected. So it's like domestic goddess or.
Sure.
Pure, good superwoman, perfect mommy. So a perfect mother doesn't exist.
Perfect nothing exists.
Perfect, especially a perfect mother doesn't exist. So and why should it?
Yeah.
Just be a nice person. Just be a nice person, right? Ravia's grinning, but. Yeah.
So a very fitting close to this piece, and I know it's one of your absolute favorites, is Driftwood. To this, at least this part of the conversation. So let's move to Driftwood. Much said over here.
So Driftwood, actually, it just came to me, or we were in a Gonda in Goa and just on the beach, and I saw this beautiful piece of Driftwood. It looked so perfect. But of course, lying there, nobody had noticed it really. So I first took some photographs of it and all that, and then this piece just came, and then I did the sketch. So here's the piece. It's called Driftwood. So you did wash ashore eventually, after tossing long hours in the dark, strengthened by fate, powered by will, driftwood, broken but beautiful, with a lot more burn in you still.
It's really fabulous. It sums it up beautifully.
So this is my personal favorite. I just love it because I feel that you're never finished till you stop breathing. There's always something that you can do, and you can, here I am at my age, new book out, and, in fact, I like sketching. For instance, I had sketched in school. And then, of course, writing happened, theatre happened, etc., etc. So there are a lot of my friends who actually didn't know that I sketched. Yeah. A lot of them who are here actually didn't know. And the kids, I remember telling me, because they had started doing Inktober, both of them, Revant and Ravia, were both doing Inktober. And, they said, why don't you? And I said that, I'm not sure whether I can still sketch. And well, I decided, I said, let me do it. And yeah, so everybody can do something. And I also feel, here's the other thing, which I keep telling people, and I tell kids a lot, when I do workshops. And but there is no human being on this God's earth who is born without a talent. Yeah. Everybody has a talent. So there are some who will juice it to the last drop. And there are some who just gloss over it or forget it. Or, I cannot make time for that because I've got other more important, dutiful things to do. So they don't do it. And I think that is an injustice to ourselves and to the world. Everybody, every single human being has a talent.
More burn in them.
Yes, more burn and you still,
Exactly.
You can keep burning, yeah.
This image itself is just going to, I'm sure it'll last in everyone's mind, it'll stay for a while longer. We have, I think we're good on time? 6:05.
Yeah, okay.
So we can do a quick recap, Vanessa.
Okay.
I know I had 3 more pieces there, so we can just, basically we're talking about perspectives, we're talking about the wisdom that one needs to have from a very, very different point of view. So let's just talk about, some of the pieces you've written, really focusing on that. Reflections after the rain, perhaps, that would be one of them. Let me turn that.
So this is a piece called Reflections After the Rain. And this is how it goes. How it thundered down last night, hellish rain dark with fury. And now, in the gentle morning light, I see signs in the puddles I pass, where slush meets sky, high meets low, calm meets storm. Heaven at my feet, I reflect on how easy it was meant to be. Coexistence. So this is basically talking about, we make a big deal about differences. How does it even matter? How does it matter, who is what and who's eating what and who, worships what or who? But, nature can if nature has taught us how to coexist, why have we stopped wanting to do that?
That's so nicely done. Slush meets sky and the rest of it, of course. There is a thought over here when you're talking about coexistence, which spreads across various things. It's not just political or religious differences. It's right there in your house. It starts from there. Yes. So all these relationships you were talking about, everything fits in. Another one which, again, puts things into perspective, quite literally, is crystal ball. So I'm just going to move to that.
Yeah. Okay. How you look, the piece is called Crystal Ball. How you look at the future is just perspective. Ask any crystal ball. So if you can't see hope in there, adjust your angle. That's all. I think the biggest truths in our world are actually the simplest. And if we can, sort of crystallize it down to just a thought, it is that, you can't change the world. There's nothing that you can do as a solitary human being that is going to change a situation. The only thing that you can do is change your perspective. And you change your perspective and things will look different. It will look better, So if I'm a little allergic to whiners. So, if you're going to be whining about something, it is therefore going to be a sorrowful situation. It's nothing's, but if so that's the same way it'll look tomorrow. If it's looking sad today and you're still whining tomorrow, it's going to look the same way. But if you've changed your perspective and are looking at something, finding that positive thing to look in that situation, it's going to look different the next day.
And I like how when the pandemic started, way back in March 2020, all of us said, oh my God, our way of thinking is going to change and we're only going to be about what matters and we're not going to look at materialistic things and no big parties and all.
Yeah.
It didn't last even as long as that Dalgona coffee.
Yes.
So
I know.
But hopefully, best intention.
But let's hope that some of those learnings of the pandemic are still there with us. Let's hope that some of those learnings are going to.
On that note, hope.
So this is a piece called Hope. And here's how it goes. No rule books for optimists. They believe beyond scope. When things get really bad, they still find reason to hope. Call them moronic if you must, but just so you are clear, hoping never killed anyone. It's the mopers who need to fear. So here's the thing. I feel that, the world is not a bad place, despite, everything that's happening. Let's make it better. It's only we who can change it. And we have to be optimistic, because without hope, there is nothing. There is nothing. Then we might as well just go and curl up and die somewhere. Honestly. Because hope is what, keeps us going. That is the only thing.
Nothing more for me to say over here, because that's really the best note to end this book on, this part of the conversation. Open to the audience now. Shefali, maybe you can use this mic, or you have another one? Great. There's a hand straight up there. Someone who sat quiet for very long.
Yeah. So that's a very inspiring person. So I'm sure I'm going to get a very, tough question there. Tough observation.
Not a difficult question. Observation, Vanessa, I think the beauty of what I've heard in the last hour, one is the simplicity of your words. Second is the amount of meaning that you are able to pack in such few words. And thirdly, the last line of almost every poem has a reveal that uplifts the entire piece.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And of course, the way the illustrations just tie in perfectly with the words you've written are beautiful. My question for you is this. You undertake so many different creative endeavors. What is your creative process? How do you get from an idea to whether it is a finished poem or a finished play? How do you work through that, and when do you know it's done, and is it ever done?
Yeah, actually, I don't think anything is ever done. So every day it's just a habit. I either scribble something or I write a few lines here and there. So I have hundreds of these half-written things floating around the place. So it's just that. And someday when there's a need to maybe write a story or write a play or something, and something comes back, and then I go back and dig it out. But CJ, what I feel is that I have poetry. So people who don't know poetry, who are not really poetry lovers, they feel poetry is all like daffodils and sad stories and that kind of a thing. It's not. So poetry for me is just a crystallizing of a thought, and anything can inspire. Also, the other thing is that Inktober was a great inspiration for me, actually, because, it was working to a prompt, when it's just that one word. For instance, my piece, Pace, it was just that one word that came, Pace. And when you know that you have that one word, and you have to build your thought around that, I think that is actually what sort of anchors my thoughts a little bit, if that answers your question. Thanks.
So we can move. Okay.
Vanessa, stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
I mean, whether you talk about roots, we're all a little bit guilty, holding back versus growth, the crystal ball, the hope, and things like that. Very inspiring. But also as a parent, a little bit scary, yeah? I've been relating that
especially
to...
since I know his son very well.
That's scarier because they'll get this version straight from you. So, curious to know that when you read and reread this, what do you go through? I mean, I'm still feeling the nervousness inside.
So whenever I reread something of mine, I always feel that maybe, yes, I could have said this better, or I could have said this, whatever. The tough thing is when it's already printed, then you can't do that, because when
the self-love has to kick
That's where the self-love, and when you have to say, okay, fine, this is how I felt at that particular point, so it's okay, it's good, yeah. So I will still sit down with his 6-year-old, who is, very inspiring, and chat with him.
Shefali, Amar has a question. Question? Observation?
Yeah, I brought really the silencer, so there's no need for a mic.
It helps with the...
I'm picking up what you quoted Rohit is saying and what Parul just said, and combining the two to say that Vanessa, actually, you leave a lot unsaid, and you don't talk too much.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you hear that? Did you hear that, people? Did you hear that?
The camera's on.
Yes, because you have, and Parul said the same thing right now, that you say so little, and I had expressed that when I was introducing you, that how you translate thought into words and to make means of expression, forms of expression. You say very little actually, and therefore the question I have for you is, how do you manage that? Because most artists want to pack it in and say, okay, I have to say everything that I want to say, I have to say everything I want to feel, but what you're doing, what I sense from here is, you're actually just leaving it short of our interpretation.
You know, yeah.
Force feeding us in terms of what you're thinking is, how do you manage to do that?
It's because, you know, it's this Instagram age. And I remember Ravia once telling me when I had written something very long, I don't know whether she even remembers it, she said, Mom, don't write these long things, nobody reads it. So then, you know, everything is instant. And honestly, if you have a message and you can say it powerfully in 5 lines, why do I have to write a novel about it? You know? Yeah. That is the challenge. That is the challenge. So you take up on what Swati has said. Yes, started in advertising. Therefore, my sketches are basically what we call copywriter scribbles. You know, because I'm not an artist. You know, I mean, I would just scribble something, and you know, so yeah, they're copywriter scribbles. Yeah, sorry, Amar.
I just want to quickly quote one thing which applies so much here, but it need not be taken literally for what it is saying. But Fez, one of our famous poets of our century, had once written, वो बात सारे फसाने में जिसका जिक्र न था, वो बात उनको बहुत नागवार गुजरी. The thing that I had not said is the one thing that affected her the most.
Yeah, beautiful, 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 beautiful. You know, because sometimes when you hammer a thought, you know, you keep hammering a thought, you actually don't, it has no effect. You know, it's the unsaid actually says more than the said sometimes. Yeah.
So anyone else who wants to ask, say, or else we can continue with that over coffee. What next?
Theatre.
Yay!
Have to.
Yeah,
if we can meet like this, then well, it's about time we did a play. Yeah.
So just to remind everyone, the books are here in the next room, and the author and artist will be signing them. And so please queue up and get your coffee or tea or whatever.
Yeah,
and
please,
queue up
coffee, tea, everything.
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Parul. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you.
One more.